I mean, if you're creating from a space of no values, then what you're ultimately creating is valueless.
Hi, and welcome to the STORIA Podcast, where storytellers disrupt. I'm David Noroña, and before we hop into yet another episode of a very special series of STORIA episodes, where we're featuring our program directors, our staff, students, founders from Bethel Conservatory of the Arts, where we have programs in acting, filmmaking, music theater, dance, and screenwriting. I want you to like, subscribe, follow, download, and give us that 5-star review. And here with me today, I have three of my favorite people from Bethel Conservatory of the Arts, and we're getting to feature something that's near and dear to my heart, but perhaps not as near and dear to you. I've got both the program head of the Film and New Media program, who also parenthetically happens to be my brother-in-law. So definitely one of my favorite people. Dave, it's great to have you, man.
Figure, man. Hey, it's. I was wondering when we were going to.
When we were finally going to have our podcast.
Get my invite. To this amazing podcast.
Well, especially given the fact that you kind of helped me set this place up. So I'm a little bit. I'm grateful.
Look, man, I can't take credit for that though. This place is amazing, and you spent a lot of personal time.
I did that for two other of my favorite people, which is my son. You should check out his podcast and Joshy's podcast, Juvie. But Dave, you've always been a storyteller. And ladies, if you're wondering who these lovely ladies are over here, they're two of our Film and New Media students. But I want you to hang tight, because we're going to walk through all three of your stories. And Dave, man, I've known you now for a good long amount of time, and I've gotten to know a little bit about your childhood, but I want to explore maybe one aspect of it, which is, when did you first know that you might have something inside you that would want to become a filmmaker?
Wow. I think for me it was twofold actually. There was a technical aspect to that, because I think I've always just had a fascination with the gear and the equipment and how it all works, how it all operates. But then there was also just a component, a performance component for me, a creative component that was almost, but that kind of materialized in a way that was more like an in front of the camera kind of thing.
Well, yeah, because I mean, what a lot of people may not know about you, and by the way, he's a total tech genius. Like, whenever I have a deep level, this isn't like B-side album. This is like deep cut question about how some geeky thing works with another geeky thing. Dave's like the first guy that I call. But you actually really are a performer at heart, and you've expressed it in so many different ways throughout your life. What some people might not know is that you have a deep affection and respect for the craft of acting as well.
Absolutely.
Talk to me a little bit about that before we go to filmmaking. When did you first get bit by the acting bug?
Yeah, sure. So, yes. So, I mean, to go back to your original question, on the technical side, I think it was, in and around 1978 or 79, that one Christmas day, my dad showed up with this VHS camera.
Yes, he did.
Which actually had a recording mechanism separate from the camera. That's how old this was. And back then you couldn't actually record onto the camera itself. It had to go from a wire to another tape deck. Anyway, but I found it fascinating because I came out that morning for Christmas and I'm seeing myself on TV and I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like,
I like this feeling.
That's amazing. Right. And so as I got older, I just began to pull this stuff out and play with it. And I realized, like, oh, you turn this knob, the picture gets darker. You turn this, it gets brighter. Oh, if I move the camera this way, like this happens, so it's like, so I'm poking around with this stuff and I'm gaining an affection for the gear, but at the same time,
being in front of the camera. Well, what I love about the imprinting of your moment, and I think those first blush moments are so important, is that two things happen for you: gear and I'm on TV.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I love that you pointed that out. So, and then after that, I think, obviously school plays and different things like that, just kind of.
So were you a part of like, theater?
I was AV club and drama club geek. Totally. I mean, that was it. And, I was in every production in, middle school, high school, and so forth and so on. I think the only thing that I didn't do,
ballet,
and have never done is dance. Like that is probably, if I had to pick a discipline that I least connect with on a personal level.
Yeah, but it's
me doing it.
Yeah, but it's the outfit I most like to see. And it's maybe like a ballet.
Two little,
Dave, there it is. Orientation next year. So we're going to cliffhang on your story and your artistic journey. Anouk, you have a lovely dialect. What nation do you hail from? And talk to me a little bit about your first blush experiences with creativity. Where are you from?
I'm from South Africa originally, but left my good old nation about when I was around 11 years old and moved to London.
And what took you to London?
The film industry. My dad is first and foremost an executive director, and worked with TBN for a couple years. So we've been hopping around the globe for most of my childhood because of that. So you could say film has kind of been in my genes.
It's the family business.
It's the family business.
And you and I didn't find this out until you started your journey at BC. I'm going to hopscotch to kind of like a strange 1 degree of separation, which was that I thought your last name was so familiar to me, but it was an odd feeling, and I thought, well, why on earth would this South African girl's name be familiar to me? And then I forget what happened. It was in one of our classes that I realized that many, many years ago, I had traveled to London shooting a documentary for Bethel TV and had interviewed your dad at the London studios of TBN and stood on the balcony shooting this whole scene with your dad.
Yep.
which was absolutely insane. So clearly it's been in the family and you've hopped around the world. But talk to me now about you. Take me back to that little girl. When was the first moment that you realized that creativity was a part of your design?
I definitely grew up in a very creative home. And so music and laughter and movie watching was absolutely a very common, nonstop theme. And I remember as a little girl sitting in my room one night trying to pray and whatnot. And I'd always struggled with vocalizing, with just talking in prayer. And so I sat in my room and alone, and I just started singing this prayer and just felt like this wash of Holy Spirit, like at 11, just in my room alone. And I think that's when it kind of connected in my head, where it was, wow, this is so much more than just for fun. Like there was something in my soul that was crying out for even just this little piece. Even though it was singing, it was absolutely tapping into something much bigger than I'd realized at the time.
Wow. I love, first of all, I love that your first moment actually was birthed out of prayer and that it was a music theater prayer. No, I'm joking, but that it came through song. I mean, it reminds me of King David. I mean, this was his relationship, his intimate relationship with the Father. So I've got something that I want to say to you. Let me sing it to you. Right? Asah, talk to me a little bit about your first moments with creativity. Where are you from, and what was your first impression with this?
Oh, okay.
This crafty stuff.
Crafty stuff? Yeah. Not just film stuff?
Well, any stuff.
Any stuff.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Oh, are you telling me that you're a crafter? Do you have little books and scrapbooks and stuff where you're crafting? No.
It's too many things. Too many hobbies. Too many hobbies.
You don't even know.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I am born Denver, Colorado, lived there for a bit. And I was actually a dancer for a really long time. I was in dance when I was 2 years old. And I was in a very special program, and it was like a worship dance program.
Wow.
And so I kind of always grew up with that in my life until I moved, of course. Yeah. So
you talk to me about those moments. What do you remember dance doing to the insides of you as a little girl?
Mm-hmm. I always struggle a little bit with communication. So having something visual and something that I could just express fully, and it's the same with film as in dance. You can just express fully what you're feeling with movement or with a visual image, and it just felt like I could say what I'm feeling or say what was inside of me and express it in a way that people could see.
I love that. I mean, I don't know that I'm married to a dancer, but I don't know that I've ever equated the similarity between filmmaking, which is a visual form, and dance, which is a visual physical form. Dave, I want to pick up with you. Thank you, ladies. We're going to continue your story in a second. Dave, so what is the next big step you take with your creativity? You discover that you love gear and you love being on TV. Do you ever like take a leap of faith and head west, young man?
Yeah, well, it was in my pursuit to really embrace ballet, actually.
See, it's back. I prophesied. I have spoken. No.
Yeah, I have spoken. No, you know what? Yes, there was. And for me, actually, it was funny because, you know, for me, it was acting. It was really all about acting. You know, fascinated with the technical stuff, but you know, in college, actually in high school, you know, I was part of the international thespian competition.
Yes, you were.
And I had won district and state levels and all of that. I actually got an acting scholarship to college from that. So, you know, for me, that's what it was always meant to be about. And I was in Orlando, Florida. And while I was still sort of pursuing acting, I didn't really want to wait tables like all the other actors do. So I decided, well, you know what, like I'll get into production. And my acting coach at the time, her husband, had just started a new network, a cable network.
Oh, wow.
And so I kind of got a job as like an office PA, which is shorthand for delivering coffee.
So you were a waiter.
Yeah. So I went right back into waiting tables. But it was just an amazing time just to be able to learn and to get an understanding of what went on behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. And so I felt myself really being pulled to the behind the scenes because I felt like, hey, this is going to make me a better actor.
Yeah.
And, you know, having a really strong concept of what's happening behind the camera. And what really ended up happening was I just got bit by that bug. And so I came out to California. I was pursuing acting in LA, but I was also working for various production companies and kind of gaining a foothold behind the camera as well.
But you were incredibly entrepreneurial because, I mean, not only do you do that, not only did you work for other people, but you did something else pretty remarkable and ambitious in LA as well. What did you do?
Well, I guess it was around 2002. I started my own production company, and that kind of flourished. I had some great clients. I ended up working with Disney, Universal, AFI. I produced a series of PSAs for UNICEF.
I mean,
and
red
did a bunch
carpets
of that stuff
with celebrities.
Yeah, we're doing red carpets. I was working quite a bit with AFI, doing producing all the media for their AFI film festivals, but also doing a lot of the Life Achievement Award, red carpet, stuff like that, interviews. And, but also in that process, oddly enough, I kind of got bit by, this is kind of funny. I worked with the U.S. Army as well, and I worked with a U.S. Army Ranger Master Sergeant who co-wrote the hand-to-hand combat manual and the Army Ranger combat manual. And I was asking him one day, I said, how do you face fear? And he goes, well, the only way to face fear is you face it head on. And at that time, the biggest fear that I had was actually singing in public, which, funny enough, that's how I got my SAG card, which was singing on Ally McBeal.
Oh,
I don't know
gosh.
if you knew that, but yeah.
No.
So that's how I got my SAG card. But I was like, look, I'll public speak. I will act. I'll be in front of anybody. No problem. 10,000 people.
I love that you're trying to negotiate with this Army Ranger. Like, singing how did that
in front of people? That was my kryptonite. I was terrified. So immediately I put his advice into practice, and I went to karaoke. You know, to be lying if there was, you know, saying there's no liquid courage involved, but I did get up in front of some people and sing, and I ended up getting bit by that bug. So on top of having the entertainment, or on top of having the production company and still acting, I started an entertainment DJ karaoke company.
You know what I love about you? Like, all he did was, this
LA.
Ranger, he was just trying to get you to sing in front of some people. And then, no, but what your conclusion is not only am I going to do that, I'm going to start my own karaoke company with multiple hosts.
Yes.
And my own I mean,
it got pretty big. We were doing a bunch of shows. We had like, at one point at the height of it, I think we had like 10 shows a week. We were,
it's crazy.
In fact, that's how I met my wife. Oddly enough,
you did.
His sister,
my sister.
Oh, that's right. So yeah, funny enough, there was an Italian restaurant.
Yep.
Christy was working at that restaurant, and the owner was asking about starting a karaoke show there, and I was vehemently against it because it was a little too far from the house, and I didn't want to do it. And I went there, and then I met your sister, and the rest.
And you were like, I'm going to make this drive all day long.
The rest is
Cuban hostess.
2 kids, 2 beautiful little ones later, and that's,
So I've never asked you this, but what better place than on a microphone in front of people? But so what song did you sing at karaoke that was the turning point where my sister got googly eyed for you and thought, oh, I think I like this guy?
Oh gosh,
because you were hosting, so you were also doing some of the singing, weren't you?
Yeah, oh sure,
of course you were. Was it Let's Say Take on Me, Aha, or what?
Well, the funny thing was, we had a term in the industry called scarioke. So, if you could karaoke somebody, you would go up and just sign them up for something they didn't know was coming. And so I made the mistake of letting your sister karaoke me. And I think she put in Beautiful Day by U2, which those Bono notes.
Oh, yeah.
I could pull some falsetto off.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
I mean, dude, he's
Irish tenor.
Yeah, Irish tenor, exactly. And so it's a beautiful. It wasn't such a beautiful day after that, but I think she had compassion and pity for me, and I think that's really what what won it over.
I love it. Well, we're going to continue your journey because it's totally fascinating. The fact that you took this leap of faith to the industry and LA. Not everybody takes that leap, man, but you had the courage to do that. Asah, I want to pick up with you. So you explored and maybe discovered without words that you were a visual storyteller in some way, shape, or form. Did that stay dormant, or did you explore it and express it during middle school and high school? What shape did creativity take for you in that next chapter?
Yeah, so creativity took, I want to be an actor. Da, da, da. I did act a few times just on stage.
You're totally blowing my mind right now because Asah's a really good filmmaker and she's incredibly technically proficient, but she's hit me with both dance and acting. Surprising. So did you get into acting as well?
Not really. I don't think my mom wanted to be an actor at all, but my neighbors, they decided, hey, let's make a short film. And I was like, oh, cool. So I acted in that. And then I was like, I really like doing this. I want to do this again. So I brought all my cousins together and I was like, I guess no one really knows how to handle a camera.
Which is, by the way, what Asah thinks on a daily basis. No,
shh, don't tell anybody.
I love that you're a natural producer, though, because she went from having a bit role in somebody else's film to, you know what I'm going to do? Produce my own. Let me make this thing happen. All right, so you gather your cousins.
Gather my cousins.
And what happens next?
So write a script, co-write with my cousin.
Of course you do.
And we start making it happen. I was acting in it because that's what I want to do. I got it back, started editing it, and I was like, this is what I had in my head.
Oh.
And so I was like, okay, how do I explore that?
Huh.
And so that's got me into learning more about film and learning how I could take what I see in my head and apply it to filmmaking.
Gosh, that's such a beautiful way of putting it. And I often say to my writers, actually, that one of the biggest challenges every artist has is to take something from the inside of you and to share it with the world. Yeah. But one of the other big challenges is like, the way that song sounded on the inside of me, the way that it sounds when I heard it on playback. And I think the challenge of every filmmaker, but the privilege of every filmmaker, is to keep sculpting that thing in post-production and even in future projects. And we're going to pick up with your story because I know your sense of determination. I have to imagine that you didn't just let it be with that first project, but that you would come back around it to get the stuff that's on the inside of you, on the outside. And I want to keep exploring that with you. Anouk, so you're born into this family of entertainers and producers and creatives, and you have this divine experience privately as a little girl. Fast forward now to high school and to that next chapter. What shape does your creativity begin to take form?
So I've done about 5-6 years of photography.
Oh.
So I was a photographer first and foremost, taking classes when I was in London, and anything that I could do, from prom pictures to family pictures to maternity shoots to anything and everything that if someone asked, I would do. I think I did my first wedding just before coming here, and that was just
no pressure.
No pressure at all. I don't think I'll be doing that anytime soon.
Yeah.
Again, but it was just feeling so honored by these small little opportunities, and it kept kind of feeding and growing into what can you tell within a picture, and what story can you tell without it just it's like bringing a picture to a story and having it laid out, having meaning behind it, and like a picture can tell 1,000 words, and it just very much that headspace around it, and applying that in film. I think, yeah.
And I have to imagine too that, like, you know, what I love is how God sets up everybody, how nothing is wasted, like how every single one of these affections, fascinations, stirrings of the heart, it's like nothing's wasted, because the privilege of doing about 8 of these episodes in the last 12 hours is to pick up on themes, because they become very, very apparent of patterns of how God whispers these little moments, and then all of a sudden he strings together these orchestrations and these films of like how that little moment connects to this. Dave, I want to pick up with
people too, like just bringing people together. You have no idea who you're going to come across in your life and how that person's going to influence you. And it might be for 30 seconds, or it might be for 3 or 6 or 10 months, like we've just spent together. And just, you know, having those moments and learning from one another and working on your craft together. You know, because as you know, several times we've discussed, there's no one size fits all solution to a problem in production, in film, or even in a
story, to anything. Nope.
Everything's an original creation, you know, and there are technically no quote unquote rules, you know, so just having that space to where we can all create together. And
Dave, speaking of spaces, man, so you go on this personal journey, and we're going to move forward a little bit. I know your story, but you know, you and I had been in conversations for years. You know, we had been exploring different possibilities for our families, for your journey, for mine, and I had just such respect for you as a craftsman, as a professional coming from the industry. You know, and here we were developing this space for film that was, you know, broken open by a good friend of ours, Kenny Bryant, who broke it open and created this.
Stepped up to the plate.
He stepped up to the space.
He made a way.
He did. He made a way. He was sort of like, you know, John the Baptist preparing the way. But I remember our conversation leading up to these moments, and there was a sense of urgency as to when and how you showed up. But I'm curious, man, beyond that, how was it out there in the world? Being a creative, and as the head of the Film and New Media program at BCA, speaking of spaces, what kind of space have you envisioned and wanted to create for this next generation of artists? Describe for me the space that you've created for the filmmakers at BCA.
Wow. It's a lot. That's a lot to unpack there.
Just start throwing out some words that come to mind. Describe the space that a student experiences when they come to BCA.
You talk about that transition, and you know, one of the things that I love about BCA, and one of the things that I feel like we're doing here, it's everything that I wished I had as a young artist, as a young filmmaker, because in a sense, I kind of put the heart, or the cart before the horse, or the heart before the core, so to speak. You know what I mean? And you know, I'm glad I had the opportunities that I had, and I'm ultimately happy that it worked out, because ultimately that led me here. But I can say
it was different.
Yeah, being in the world and doing this in the world and doing this the world's way. You know, I didn't have the foundation that I ultimately that I feel like I needed and that I wanted. We've talked about this in class several times as well. But I don't know. I don't know if I've lost track.
No, you have it, and I love it. And you know, if you're listening and you're not watching this, I think it's important, man, because this really pings your heart. And I know you're a deep well. You do have that Irish, that big Irish emotional heart about you, which I love. I'm going to walk you through this, because there's some things that I've heard you say to me that I think I just want you to share. So I'm just going to ask you a series of questions. Use a few words to describe for me what the industry feels like as a filmmaker out there in the world. What are some of the things how would you describe that world out there?
I feel like in Hollywood, the idea is just to create entertainment for entertainment's sake. And I feel like it's missing a heart and a connection to what's really important. And I mean, if you're creating from a space of no values, then what you're ultimately creating is valueless. But if there's an intention and a desire behind the project, and it doesn't always have to necessarily, I think, align with we're going to preach. Because I feel like inevitably, I feel like a lot of Christian films, we've had this discussion before, we're preaching to the choir. But I feel like that there's a lot of folks out there that are just desperate for a different message. And I feel like what we're creating here at BCA, through coursework like Wholehearted Artist and through theology of art and through a lot of the components that we build into BCA,
is that foundation.
You're not just learning that the technical craft, how to do things. Yes, you're getting that skill set as well, but you're also gaining an understanding of where that skill set is to come from,
100%,
and a foundation underneath there.
I mean, I think this foundation that you're describing is one of having an identity as a son or daughter in Christ. And but specifically, because there are some places you can go that do value that. Our School of Ministry at BSSM spends a good portion of time really helping young believers, and maybe not so young because I was 39 when I went, discover their identity. My midlife crisis, by the way, was pursuing Jesus, not a Corvette.
Amen.
Ponytail. So,
thank God.
Yeah, thank God.
We wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Thank God. But I think that foundation is knowing who you are, but in the context of your craft. And I think what I hear you describing is that there's a lot of different places you can go. I mean, for Pete's sake, you can probably learn how to be a filmmaker on YouTube. I don't know how good, but you can learn some of the stuff. You know how some of the cameras work. You know how to edit and how to do these things. But here's the thing that I see missing over and over and over again. And they're the two most important things to me is, one, the ability to actually tell a story. As much as I love beautiful pictures, I think if you're going to be a filmmaker, those beautiful pictures actually have to add up to not just a series of images that are cool or whatever, but that actually tell a story. And then here's the next question that's going to immediately come up, which is the who I am is what I will tell.
Oh.
So what I often teach in a lot of my classes is that the story that you believe is the story that you will ultimately tell. So if you believe in the reality of fatherlessness without any possibility of ever having a father, you will tell stories that only have a series of orphans as protagonists. Because, by the way, whether you're quote unquote religious or not, whether you recognize that you have values or not, there's something you believe that you're going to vomit or preach upon the planet. And I think BCA is just one of those places where, under the tutelage of good fathers and mothers, you can begin to discover and begin the journey. And I call it like a true north. You're not going to figure it out all. This is, you're not going to walk away with your PhD in filmmaking here. But what I do know that you walk away with is a sense of, who am I? Who is he, and what am I called to make? And I am called to a way deeper purpose than just to entertain. We need to laugh, we need to cry, but there's a deeper purpose here. Anouk, I'm going to keep moving forward in our stories here. And why BCA? How did we get on your radar? And why did you take that beautiful leap of faith to come spend time with us?
So I did 6 months of mission work before this with YWAM Kona.
Oh, wow.
And absolutely amazing experience. If I could make a rule for the world, is that every 18-year-old
is to go to Kona.
Should go to Kona, Hawaii for 3 months, and then go be in the real world for the other 3. Because you get to have that fun, but I think you just encounter God in a different way, where it's such a condensed, godly environment. But before that, I had initially been trying to think of what I was going to do next. And my mom brought up BCA because we're very closely connected with
God bless mothers. I think that we need to pay mothers a commission, because so many moms have been like, hey, baby, sweetie, you should go check. It's Holy Spirit and mom whispering to the future students.
Mom prayers. It's absolutely. It was, but I felt no peace about coming. I mean, absolutely now did not feel that this was what I had to do at that time.
Fair enough, yeah.
And then started having dreams about Hawaii, and so went off on that. And then towards the end, my mom had brought it up again. And I was so against it before, but she brought it. And I was like,
Can I ask a question? I want to unpack, because you're probably being kind and polite, maybe for my sake or mom's, but I'm going to cause you to be impolite for a second, because it's my favorite thing to do. No. So what were you resistant against? Because I think it's actually important to talk about some of those resistances that we feel openly and honestly. Like, why were you thinking, I don't think this is for me?
I think I honestly doubted whether or not this was like where I had to go. I think I was very much in the headspace of going to like Florida State or Liberty University, all these other bigger, more well-known, established. Yep. They've been established for a couple of years now. Or like Full Sail, like places that I'd been accepted to.
Wow.
And it's like, well, if I am going to go straight into studying, why wouldn't I just go there? But I think, and my mom nailed it on the head with bringing it. It was, you're at the end of the day, you're going to get around the same amount of experience, and you're really going to get experience when you actually go out into the industry and into the world. But it was, where do you want to establish your craft? There's
that theme again of foundations.
Yes. It's like at the very foundation of this, because I think out of everyone, I was the newest to the game coming into this class. And my experience was very much here, and I wanted to build from that. So what's your foundation? And I wanted my foundation to be God, which was why we went off to YWAM and all of that. And then coming here and being able to establish and build up from that, just in an environment where you're with other creatives, but also like people who are pursuing the same God. And so therefore, to some degree, pursuing the same goal. I think that was just, I don't think, from where I've looked, and I looked from London to America and all, I just didn't find some, and from visiting campuses, it's not the same, where you so establish your craft in your love for him. But if he's our foundation, shouldn't everything else branch from that?
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, listen, I love having these open, honest conversations, because, we're not Harvard. We haven't been around for 150 years. I mean, I went to Carnegie Mellon, and that school's been around for over 100 years. It's the oldest degree. It even beats Juilliard. I like to show that off occasionally, Dave. In terms of being the oldest degree giving drama school, and you have Ivy and Walls and traditions that go back, 150 years. And there's a real beauty to deep wells like that. And so we all
had to start somewhere.
We all, yeah. Well, and I'll tell you what
there was a time where those places,
schools were 5 years old as well.
Exactly.
Well, and I'll tell you what was interesting real quick, to take a quick detour, and then Asah, I'm going to hit your journey to BCA here in a sec. But I remember when Chris Valentin, prophet of the house at Bethel, asked us to kind of come and present to senior leadership. This is me and Fab. So if you can imagine, it's like, this room full of spiritual giants. There's Bill, who I think is literally sitting on a chair at Chris Valentin's house from the Welsh Revival, as if having Bill in the room is not enough. Let's have him sit on a chair of the Welsh Revival. All right, that's not intimidating. And then we have Chris Valentin and Danny Silk and Brian Johnson and Eric Johnson and all of the women of the movement as well. And there we are. And Chris says, so I want you to cast vision for this thing called BCA. And Danny Silk was sort of like my spiritual dad. He's the guy who wrote Culture of Honor and Loving Your Kids on Purpose. And so he in many ways, it was his books that actually brought me up here. And I still remember where I was. I was working 410s at Bethel Media as a senior producer, as a mini version of your dad. And I would go write Fridays at the library. And I came out of the library, and I was stuck writing my book. And I thought to myself, I'm going to call Danny Silk, and I'm going to tell him what I really want to do, because what I really want to do is actually open this school, this conservatory. And Danny's such an amazing father. He says to me, is that what you want to do? And I said, that's what I want to do. He says, then I will back you 100%. Wow. You tell me what room you need to be in to do that, and I will back you. So there I am, fast forward to standing in front of these giant men and women of the faith, and we cast vision for it. And this is why I'm telling the story. And Danny opens his mouth, and he says to me, Harvard University started as a school of divinity. That's what Bethel Conservatory is for us. But check this out. How cool is this? You know how the Lord sends worshipers ahead of his armies? It's actually BCA, Bethel Conservatory of the Arts, that was the first accredited college for the Bethel movement. And we're now all moving towards Bethel School of Technology, Bethel Music College, all becoming Bethel College. But believe it or not, it was BCA that was the first accredited branch of this thing. So we've all got to start somewhere. Well, thank you for taking a leap into, listen, this is how I like to say it. Once you walk through the door of any Ivy League school and you're not looking at the Ivy and all that, what the quality comes from the teaching. And I think the presence of God. Somebody said in one of the other episodes, I thought 2 + 2 is equal to 4. I said, no, that's math, but magic looks like 2 + 2 is equal to 5. And the 2 + 2 is the stuff we do. And 1, that extra 1, that's Holy Spirit. Asah, talk to me a little bit about why BCA, what brought you here. For Anouk, it was having that firm foundation, that true north that is Christ. And she turned away other universities. Why did you come to us?
So when I was looking, I was going to graduate high school early. And at that point—
Because you're young. How old are you?
Freshly 18.
You just turned 18.
Happy belated birthday, by the way. 2 weeks ago, right? Yeah.
I mean, that's young. That was how old I was. I was 17 years old when I got to Carnegie Mellon. And so God bless your parents for trusting you with with us. So you were, what were your plans? Where were you headed?
Where I was headed? So I was working, at that time, my film and like what I was exploring, it was through my church. I was volunteering there. And there, because I started worship dancing. And so, back when I was younger, right? And I learned to celebrate God through my dance. And I kind of forgot about that for film. But when I came back and started volunteering for my church, it rekindled, oh, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing this for God. And I'm doing this with God. And when I was looking for schools and I was thinking, like, I want to do this with God. And I didn't know where the next step was in film because I heard people, oh, don't get a bachelor's in film. You don't need it. And my mom, of course the mom, she brought up moms. She's like, hey, BCA actually has a film program. I was like, really? And so I think once I saw that, it was like, oh, perfect. There was no question in my mind. I'm like, I'm going here.
It was instant for you. Well, I love the way that you described it. I mean, for you, and again, it's almost like we're ducklings, right? And we're just imprinted in those first moments. And for you, for both of you ladies, it feels like worship. It was just central to, it's like it almost preceded creativity for you. So like there's no separation for the two of you. Creativity is worship, worship is creativity. Ladies, I need to ask, and it's maybe selfishly one of my favorite questions, and I'm going to work my way back to you, babe. An old doo-wop song that Dave's the only other person who can recognize that one. But Ace, I'm going to stay with you for a moment. What's been one of the more transformative moments? It can be anything at BCA. I mean, you came here as a film student, but I often joke that the Lord, Jehovah Sneaky, he sometimes goes, yeah, film. And then he goes, gotcha, karate chops you with this other surprise because he's just up to something with all of his children. He wants to bless them all. What's been one of the more transformative moments for you while being at BCA?
Okay. I got a few. I'm trying to think which one's more relevant.
Don't worry. Give me the one that moves your heart the most. What's been the most transformational thing for you on a heart level?
I think this one impacted another one. And that's his orientation. Like the first thing I came here, I was a little bit depressed. I didn't have many friends. I was homeschooled growing up, and that's fine. I love homeschooled. I didn't have a lot of community around me. We moved a couple times in like key moments in your life when you build friendships. And so coming here, I was very lonely. I thought I would be alone forever. And coming to BCA, it was a little bit wild. Like the first night, oh my gosh, Anouk, I'm so sorry. You honestly, it was a little crazy because the first night we met, you're like, let's go out. Let's go do something crazy. We got in and out. And I think the first day you said, I love you. And that was wild. And the next day, it was another day of orientation where the Holy Spirit met me such a radical. I was on the carpet crying, stuff like my nose is running, everything's running. Ugly cry, everything. And it was like, I'm not going to be alone. I'm not going to be alone. God is always with me, and I know he's going to bring people to me. So I think that's probably one of the biggest transformations.
One of my favorite things to hear about. I love talking about craft and technique, and in my geekier moments, man, I can swim in that pool all day long. But I think one of the things that when I say proud, I don't mean it from taking credit for it, but the thing that maybe takes my breath away that I didn't see coming was the power of community and relationship. It was like this thing that, you don't sit down on the syllabus, when you're writing your class and go, all right, my learning objective is community and creating community. And I'm going to make a student tell another student I love you and go do something. You don't plan for these things. But it's so like the table of Christ and the table of David, right? That the Father set a table before me, right? And that in these last moments, our Lord gathered his friends around a table to break bread. And I've just over and over and over again, I've seen the testimony of community to not just bring, well, first of all, most importantly, to bring healing and all of that good stuff. But then here's the thing that blows my mind, going back to 2 + 2 = 5 is like, oh, wait a second, I didn't see this one coming. So you're telling me that when we teach in community, when we learn in community, people grow faster, that it becomes almost like fuel on the fire, that it's like the gasoline is the gathering. Anouk, how about you? What's been one of the more transformational, other than telling Asah that you love her? And by the way, I would love to hear maybe off the mic what this wild thing that the ladies went off and did, unless you want to tell me now. What was this crazy wild thing?
Evening service.
Oh my goodness.
We went to Wednesday service.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh no, but like going off of that for a second, it was one of my biggest things coming here was to find my tribe and was to find a group of people that I could continue living life with. And because creatives are absolutely insane. We're all nuts. Because who in their right mind, no one, goes after completely and absolutely just their dreams? It's just being surrounded by other dreamers. It's absolutely insane. And already making plans for the future. When we do this, and this, we're going to go here and we're going to make this, and sitting down and coming up with ideas for short films that we'll do in a couple years, maybe, or writing scripts, even though we've never done that before. And
I know a guy who teaches you how to write a script.
We know a guy. It's especially the collaboration between the different departments where, especially on orientation day, where we all got to we're all like deer in headlights coming together. We have no idea what we're doing. I didn't know anybody here previously. You didn't know anybody here previously. I don't think anyone, at least in film and media, really knew anyone previously. And collaborating with especially the group of guys from screenwriting last year, where they're
the F&M boys.
The F&M boys, where they're such a family and welcoming us as the little apprentices.
The little baby ducklings showing up.
I was going to say, it didn't take you guys any time at all. Like I mean, within a week or two, you guys had already, you fell into that group. You started planting seeds, and you had a community around you within a few weeks of school starting.
And now with one of them, we're making plans for the future, for living in the same places and stuff, where actually we want to feed into the fact that we have these different abilities or the same, and actually be able to come together and just make things.
This gets me so excited because, it was part of the vision of one of the classes that you and I co-created called Film Lab, where we wanted to bring together, and on the syllabus, the boring document that not even students read. One of the things, inside joke for students. I just marked, yes, I read that thing. No,
He's the only one that read the syllabus. I'm pretty convinced. That's it.
I didn't know that the cool thing to do was, homeschool. To walk in. Oh, I wasn't supposed
Dot
to
your
read
I's,
this.
cross
I
the T's.
love it.
That's
I love both
MO.
the readers and the non-readers. Come. No,
But
listen.
Film Lab, yeah.
A film lab. Listen, part of the mission of that class was to bring it's this crazy laboratory Mad Hatter experimental class where we have filmmakers, screenwriters, and actors all together. But the mission of the class is to actually grow in empathy and respect for one another's craft. So it's like a little baby acorn version of what Anouk is describing. And I want to lean into this for a second because so many of you are probably out there feeling like you're alone, like you don't make sense. I know that I didn't feel like I made sense in LA. It's like, I got told so many times, but you're too polite, but you're too nice, but you're too earnest. You have to be more bad boy. And I'm thinking, yeah, but I have a wife at home that I love and I have children that I want to raise and I would like for them to not hate me. And maybe not have to go through too much therapy later in life, though maybe just a tad and a bit. But that I want you to know that we both jokingly, but I think Fab and I often, our sense of humor is prophetic. It's also sometimes crazy, but also prophetic. But one of the things that we joked about early on is that we were the lost tribe of Bezalel. And the reason why we talk about that is because Bezalel was the first spirit-filled, according to scripture, first spirit-filled, pre-cross, pre-crucifixion, pre-gospel, the first spirit-filled human being in scripture. And it was unto a purpose, going back to your point of we're here for more than just entertainment. And Holy Spirit hopscotched non-linearly like a great episodic series and decided to indwell someone first. And that was because he was an artist. Think about that for a second. God chose to send his spirit into a man so that he could design a dwelling place, the temple of God. And so the purpose, I think, of creativity is to create spaces and places for others to be hit by the presence of God, whether it's in your film, whether it's in your dance, whether it's in the screenplay that you write. We are creating literal tabernacles for people to come and to worship God, coming back to the theme that you ladies brought in. Hey, we're going to dream about the future here real quick. Dave, as you imagine, and I'm going to come to each of you and we're going to cast popcorn style, quick vision for our futures. Dave, you're the head of the Film and New Media program, and you've been on this amazing journey with God, with the next generation of creative revivalists. As you imagine and cast vision for the Film and New Media program at BCA in the next 5 to 10 years, what are you dreaming about? What do you want to see happen?
I don't know whether I should crack a joke here or not. I don't want the program to suck. You can cut that out.
Visionary of you.
No,
not suck. Yes.
Not
perfect.
Suck. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's gosh, I mean, so much. There's so much that goes into it's like the perfect recipe.
Yeah.
You're trying to make the best spaghetti sauce there is. You know what I'm talking about, right? So, you add a little bit of this, you put a little bit of that, but then at the end of the day, what you're hoping for is this kind of symphony of especially here, because you're getting a new skill set. You're getting a foundation of which that skill set will emanate and come from. But we have to leave room for Holy Spirit to be able to engage us in class as well. And film and new media is an interesting bug as well, simply because you have so many people coming into a first year program at different levels and stages. You've got some folks that, like Asah, came in with a really strong technical background and knowledge. And then there's others that are just struggling with, you've got such a creative heart and a vision here, but how do you express that technically? How do you get those tools? So I've often said it's like a painter. At some point, you've got the palette, you've got the brushes, like Bob Ross, and you're going through, but you've got to know that tool set well enough to be able to bridge the gap between the technical mind and your heart. And that is the biggest challenge, I think, in a program like this that I've come across. But that's my heart. That's the intent. And I want to say in the next 5 to 10 years, I want to perfect that. But I can say that this year, at the end of it, has it all been perfect? No. God willing, it will be perhaps someday, whatever perfect means. But ultimately, if you if you experienced a breakthrough this year if you've experienced a breakthrough this year in any way, then I feel like we were successful. And it may not be in the way that we were expecting. It might not be, you might have had some ideas of what this program is going to be
we all do.
boots on the ground.
Expectations, sure.
If you came here and you got nothing, I don't know what to say to you. That's on you, because I don't know that, but I don't believe that, and I don't believe that could happen.
Well, no, and because I'm going to let you brag like a dad for a second, because I've been sidebarring with you, and you're catching now a glimpse of the fruit of this hard work that you and the students have put in on some of these projects.
Oh my!
And you've started to share with me a little bit of what you're beginning to see, without getting into details on specific projects per se, as a whole. As the dad that you are, the spiritual father that you are, the technical father and covering of the program that you are, what are you beginning to see break through in these projects? What are you catching a glimpse of?
Heart. I'm beginning to see people riding the bicycle without having to think about where the pedals are or whether or not it's going to hold you up. So what I'm really beginning to see is the fact that the tools are becoming subtext, and that the main thing is that the creativity is pouring out and it's on screen, and I'm able to see that. And that is the biggest thing that I can ask for.
That's profound. I mean, when I think about the heart, it just takes me back to the heart of worship, and that's really what the Father's always concerned about, is matters of the heart, because out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, the camera rolls, the pen writes the script. Anouk, as you envision your future 5 to 10 years from now, what does it look like?
Oh my goodness, 5 to 10 years from now. Well, immediate future and growing from there. I'm planning on taking screenwriting next year. Yeah, surprise.
Oh, that's awesome.
So,
yay, we get to see you.
We get to see me again. You haven't quite gotten rid of me yet.
I moved. I love that she dropped. She pulled one of my cards. It's on my podcast right here, right? Way to go. Well done. You are accepted because you did exactly what every screenwriter should do, which is surprise them. I love it. Wow. So you're going to be leaning into yourself as a storyteller. Oh, I'm so excited.
Which is just, can I step in?
Yes.
Incredible, because it's so funny. You begin to get to know these students, and you begin to see different,
gifts and talents and itches
come out. Yeah. And it's so funny because in the beginning, everybody shows up and you go around the room and it's like, okay, so what does everybody want to do? All the hands go up when you say director.
Yeah.
Because that's what everybody...
Until the first time they direct. And then, like, holy smokes, I never want to do that again.
Because in film and video, we study and we wear so many different hats. But the most beautiful thing about this progress and this process is that at the end, it helps you kind of whittle down exactly where
I actually think that's the secret sauce of our program. So like if I were to say one of the superpowers of the program is because, listen, when we say filmmaking, for Pete's sake, let's just say, I want to study medicine. It's like, great, what part of the body are we talking about here, right? Because filmmaking can mean 15 different things. What I think it does is it's a beautiful foundation primer of like, oh, let me go to the buffet here and okay, so there's directing and there's writing and there's producing and there's coloring and there's editing and there's, oh my gosh. And then you can get into the super specialist zone of I want to do motion graphics or whatever it is that you're imagining. Well, I'm excited that you're going to be a part of.
It's so funny. So I said, you know what? I said, you have a producer's heart. But I said, there's a story in you that you need to tell. And it was so funny because, going through, I think it was SCP and going through some of your projects. And I was like, you know what? For you to take things next step, I think it's screaming.
Way to prophesy, man. I love it.
Nailed it.
And we got a lot of prophetic words about me holding a quill and stuff from strangers. And so I was like, okay, let's
Great.
do it.
Well, unless you've got two of them and you're going to be typing like this.
I
would put
just slowly but surely.
We'll have a decorative quill. We'll have a decorative quill. Asah, when you think ahead, and I know that you're only like 8 years old, but when you think ahead to 5 to 10 years from now, being 18, where do you envision yourself?
Oh, see, I think I'm a little young to answer that question.
Maybe so. What do you dream about?
What I dream about?
Yeah.
I don't know. Right now, I'm just in the mindset of I want to learn.
Oh, I love that.
And I just want to get more knowledge.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a perfect place to be. And it's a perfect segue because I think a lot of people feel that or look at art or artists in their success and they're only seeing like some pinnacle part of the journey or like the icing on the cake. But what many people don't realize about art is that it's no different than medicine in the fact that it takes deep and profound studying, and also too, our walk with the Lord. When you go back to that word of being a disciple, what we often forget about that word is that it's not just discipline, but that it was to follow a teacher, a rabbi. And the fact that you're so humble and willing to continue to posture yourself as a learner tells me that no matter what you do in your life, you are perfectly positioned to be really powerful for the Lord to do those things. And so thank you for spending 9 or 10 months learning with us. And we really do bless your journey. Guys, it's been so amazing to hang out with you for a little bit. I like to give this invitation. I call it the creative altar call. If you're feeling, as we talk about the Film and New Media program, whether you're a director, whether you have dreams of being a screenwriter, which we have programs in as well, or whether you love gadgets and gizmos aplenty. Look at me, I became the Disney princess that I am. I want to encourage you that if you're feeling that stirring of the heart, don't despise those small beginnings. Don't brush them aside. The Lord is speaking to you at the frequency of, to quote Dave, the frequency of your heart. So if you're feeling your heart being moved or your body beginning to shake on the inside, just like when that evangelist comes to town and you say yes to the Lord, I want you to answer your call as well. And I want you to take that leap of faith, whether it's to BCA or anywhere that the Lord is calling you. It doesn't matter to us. The only thing we want to do is to be a place on the planet where if you're wondering, can I follow Christ and become excellent at my craft? I can tell you that once you walk through the doors of BCA, you're not going to find a finer group of mothers and fathers that are going to walk you through safely and calmly onto some of these wild dreams that you have. And the irony of being a wild artist is that you need a safe place to draw outside the lines, to make mistakes in community, in your tribe. And if you're feeling lost or lonely, I want to encourage you to go seek that tribe, whether it's at your church, at your youth group, or at BCA, because belonging, I think, is the key that unlocks creativity, specifically kingdom creativity. Guys, it's been so great hanging out with you today.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your heart. It's my pleasure, my pleasure. Storia followers, remember to like, follow, download, share this podcast with your friends. If you know somebody that's trying to figure out that next step, would you share this podcast with them? You might just be helping a son or daughter of God find their way to pursue their dreams. It's been a pleasure hanging out with you, Storia audience, where storytellers disrupt. We'll see you soon.